In the desert of doubt and loneliness, two hearts seek purpose after devastating losses. When the American teacher Emma and the skilled mechanic Coffee meet in a remote African village, something blooms in seemingly barren land. Among water pumps and whispered promises, fate separates them, but faith can find water even beneath the driest sand. The scorching African midday sun melted the horizon in waves of heat as Emma Carter stepped for the first time onto the red soil of Niani. At 29, her blonde hair tied in a practical bun and her fair skin already beginning to redden revealed her foreign origin. She carried a heavy backpack, a leather-bound notebook with notes from her deceased father, and hung around her neck, a simple necklace with a silver-engraved drop of water that gleamed under the relentless sun. "Welcome to our village," said the project coordinator, guiding her through mud houses with thatched roofs. "I know the journey was long." Emma smiled, feeling the weight of the past weeks. Since her father, Pastor Mark Carter's funeral, a void had settled in her chest. Neither her work as a teacher in her hometown in the interior of the United States nor the routine of the church she had attended since childhood could fill it. "Faith blooms where water seems impossible," her father used to say while showing photos of missions in arid regions. Now, these words echoed in her mind like a call impossible to ignore. A few kilometers away, in an improvised workshop under the shade of a mango tree, Coffee Mensa, 32, meticulously cleaned the parts of a water pump. His hands, marked by work scars, moved with the precision of someone who knew each gear, screw, and valve as well as the lines of his own palm. "Will this one work, Coffee?" asked one of the village elders, concern creasing his aged face. Coffee raised his dark, deep eyes, offering a smile that didn't quite reach his gaze. "If God wills and my hands allow, it will be pumping fresh water by sunset." As a boy, Coffee learned to repair engines and pumps with his father, but it was his mother, Ajoa Mensa, who taught him the most valuable lessons during the droughts that periodically plagued the region. "Son," she would say, with a voice that seemed to cradle even the wind, "where the rain doesn't reach, love can dig deeper." It had been 7 years since she passed away, taken by an illness during the worst drought the region had ever faced. Since then, Coffee worked tirelessly, as if every drop of water he helped bring to the surface was an offering to her memory. The sun was already beginning to descend on the horizon when Emma arrived at the site where a new drilling was being conducted. Clipboard in hand, she meticulously noted data on depth, soil quality, and flow rate estimates. The metallic sound of a tool falling interrupted her concentration. "Wrench 17!" shouted a firm voice from the drilling platform. Emma looked around, seeing several scattered tools. Hesitant, she approached. "Which one is 17?" she asked, confused by the many similar tools. A man lifted his sweaty face from the machine. His eyes met hers, and for a moment there was an awkward silence. "The one who seems tired like me," he finally replied, with an unexpected smile. Emma laughed, surprising herself. She couldn't remember the last time she had laughed spontaneously since her father's death. She identified the right tool and handed it over. "Thank you," he said, returning to work. "I'm Coffee. Emma, from the project monitoring team." Together, they managed to loosen the screw that was jamming the drill. Hours later, when the sun was already setting on the horizon, the equipment finally reached the water table. The water gushed out, first cloudy, then clear, as the villagers gathered around, some crying, others singing. Emma, paralyzed by the emotion of the scene, whispered almost to herself, "It's like a miracle." Beside him, Coffee watched with a sparkle in his eyes. "It's not a miracle," he replied. "It's patience and faith working together." At that moment, something inexplicable changed in the air between them. As if, amidst the desert, a seed had found its perfect place to germinate. In the following weeks, Emma divided her time between teaching the village children and overseeing the water projects. Inevitably, her paths crossed with Coffee's, who became an informal guide, explaining the local customs to her and helping her with the language. One afternoon, Emma approached the workshop where Coffee was working. He was humming softly while cleaning gears. "Do you always sing while you work?" she asked, leaning against the doorway. He turned around, surprised but not embarrassed. My mother used to say that if I stop singing, the bomb stops too. Can I hear her song? Coffee seemed to ponder for a moment. Then he nodded and began to hum a gentle hymn, which spoke of perseverance, of waters flowing beneath the dry earth, and of hope that remains when all seems lost. Emma closed her eyes, feeling a shiver run down her spine. It was the same melody her father sang in church when he spoke of faith in difficult times. How could that song have crossed oceans and deserts to find her there? Days later, while sharing a simple meal in the shade of a mango tree, Coffee offered her a blue handkerchief. "Color of new water," he said, extending the gift with a shyness that didn't match his usual confidence. "And of a new beginning," she completed, accepting the soft fabric. A silence full of meaning enveloped them, as if both knew that something profound was happening but were afraid to name it. "I'm afraid to promise to stay and then have to leave," Emma confessed, finally. "My visa is temporary. The mission has a deadline." Coffee looked toward the horizon, where the sky and the earth met in a perfect line. "Then just promise to return," he replied, simply. Time slipped through their fingers like fine desert sand. Emma and Coffee built a routine of meetings that blended work and discoveries. She showed him photos of her hometown, explained American traditions. He took her to meet village elders, taught her the constellations seen from the southern hemisphere, and told stories of his childhood. But destiny, like the desert wind, changes direction without warning. The dry season arrived earlier and more severely than expected. The generator of the main pump broke down, and the necessary parts for repair were not available in the region. Without water, the village would face months of scarcity until the next rains. "I need to go to the capital to get the parts and maybe work there for a while," Coffee announced after a meeting with the village council. "I will send money and resources here." "How long?" Emma asked, feeling a tightness in her chest. "Perhaps months, I'm not sure." "I will return before the rains," he promised as he said goodbye under a sky sprinkled with stars. Emma hugged him tightly, inhaling the smell of engine oil and local herbs that she associated with him. "And I will pray until you come back." Fate, however, had other plans. 2 weeks after Coffee's departure, conflicts broke out in the neighboring region. The missionary organization for which Emma worked ordered the immediate evacuation of all foreigners. Amid the chaos, she barely had time to leave a letter for Coffee, explaining the situation and promising to try to return as soon as it was safe. The following months were a nightmare of closed borders, broken communications, and unanswered letters. Relocated to a missionary base in a neighboring country, Emma continued her work, but her heart remained in Nione, with Coffee and the interrupted promises. "Lord," she prayed every night, "if it is your will, guide his steps. If I never see him again, let him know he was loved." And far away, under the same desert stars, Coffee murmured his own prayer. "God, teach me the melody when the wind carries the sound away." 3 years passed. Emma, now a coordinator of educational projects, was trying to rebuild her life, but the memory of Nione and Coffee remained vivid. That's when she heard about the convoys crossing the Sahel, bringing humanitarian aid and parts for water equipment maintenance. Without hesitation, she volunteered. "You know it's dangerous, right?" her supervisor asked. "The roads are not safe, there are checkpoints, bandits." "I know that, but I also know that no one understands those water systems better than I do." The truth she held in her heart was both simpler and more complex. She needed to know. She needed to try to find him one last time. The convoy consisted of 3 sturdy trucks, loaded with supplies and equipment. Emma traveled in the second one, along with the driver Brahim, a 45-year-old man with a face marked by scars and a temperament that alternated between grumbling and a raspy laugh. "So," he said, after hours of silence as they crossed desolate landscapes, "are you crossing the desert for a man?" Emma watched the horizon line before responding. "Not for a man," she finally said. "For a promise." "The promise of love," teased Brahim with a half-skeptical smile. "The promise of God not to leave me without purpose." Brahim remained silent for a few minutes, as if evaluating the answer. "I've seen many people searching for God in this desert," he finally said. "Most only find more sand." In the following days, the caravan faced sandstorms that reduced visibility to mere inches, dry wells where they were supposed to replenish water, and long nights under the piercing cold that only the desert knows. In moments of despair, Emma turned to her father's notebook, rereading the notes that were now her guiding light. Providence is not a shortcut, it is a road. Every village they passed through provided a new clue. Oh yes, the mechanic who sang while fixing pumps, but always the same ending. He went south. Or, he was here 3 months ago, then he left. After weeks of fruitless searching, even Emma began to feel her hope dwindle. On a particularly cold night, while the convoy was stopped for the night, Brahim found her sitting alone, gazing at the stars. "Maybe the desert has already taken him," said the driver, offering her a hot tea. Emma accepted the drink, letting the warmth comfort her. "Or maybe the desert is just testing who is willing to cross it," she replied, with a firmness that surprised them both. Brahim looked at her for a long time as if he was seeing her for the first time. "You have the stubbornness of saints or the madness of lovers," he concluded, with newfound respect in his voice. "In either case, I think you shouldn't give up." The next morning, the convoy resumed its route, now heading toward a small village where they needed to deliver a new pump and spare parts. As they approached, Emma noticed something unusual, a water installation that appeared functional, unlike the broken pumps they encountered in most places. When the truck stopped, she got out to examine the system. The pump was emitting an irregular sound, as if something was out of adjustment. As she got closer, Emma heard something that made her heart stop, a rhythmic tapping on metal, and a voice softly singing the same melody that had been stuck in her head for years. "Coffee," she called, almost voiceless. The tapping stopped. A figure emerged from behind the equipment, face covered in dust and grease. He stood frozen, eyes wide as if seeing a ghost. "Emma, you came through all of this?" His voice had aged, gaining a hoarseness that wasn't there before, but it was still unmistakably his. "And you really thought God would bring me all this way just to give up halfway?" she replied, with a voice that tried to be firm but was trembling. Coffee's eyes filled with tears, leaving clear trails in the dust that covered his face. "I thought the wind had carried away the sound of our song." "Then listen," she said, approaching, "because I brought the lyrics back." They hugged in the middle of that red land, under the curious gaze of the villagers who gathered around. Brahim watched from a distance, a reluctant smile appearing on his usually serious lips. When Coffee reinstalled the part Emma had brought to the pump, the water gushed out, pure and strong, illuminated by the late afternoon sun. "I think I just saw Faith fueling a tank," Brahim commented, crossing his arms. That night, sitting together under the stars, Coffee and Emma tried to fill the gaps of the lost years. He spoke about his return to Naini, only to find that she had been evacuated. How he searched for news, sent letters, until he finally accepted that perhaps their paths had permanently diverged. "But I never stopped singing our song," he confessed. Emma showed the blue handkerchief, now faded, that she always carried with her. "And I never stopped looking to the horizon, searching for the way back." The convoy would leave in 2 days. Emma had obligations, responsibilities. "But this time," she promised, "I will come back, no matter how long it takes." "And this time," Coffee replied, "I will wait no matter how much time passes." 33 years later, Emma Carter Mensah, now 62, adjusted the blue scarf, faded but intact, over her gray hair. From the porch of the simple yet comfortable house, she could see the school she had helped to build, where 3 of her grandchildren now studied. Coffee, 65, approached from behind, wrapping her in an embrace. His hands, still strong but now marked by decades of hard work and devoted love, rested on hers. "Happy anniversary," he whispered in her ear. "Do you remember what you said on the first day?" she asked, turning to face him. "That small promises are still promises?" "Yes," she smiled, "and look at what they've become." Coffee laughed, that sound that still made her heart race after so many years. "God didn't just give us water, Emma. He gave us a whole river." Hand in hand, they walked to the old tool shed, now transformed into a training center for young people interested in learning about sustainable water systems. At the entrance, a wooden carved sign displayed the words Emma had chosen on the day they decided to transform the structure. "For Mrs. Ajoa and Pastor Mark, who dug faith where there was only sand." The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and violet. Emma rested against her husband's shoulder, feeling the comforting familiarity of his body. "You know, Coffee, sometimes I think about everything we've been through, the roads, the dust, the distance. And you realize it wasn't the desert that separated us," he added. "It was it that taught us the way." At that moment, the sound of an approaching truck caught their attention. Ibrahim Brahim, now a 78-year-old man, still drove occasional convoys, though more as a consultant than as the lead driver. His annual visit had been a tradition since, more than 3 decades ago, he witnessed the reunion that changed his perspective on faith and perseverance. "I still can't believe you convinced me to drive all the way here every year," he grumbled, getting out of the vehicle with the help of a cane. "As if you didn't love seeing the boys," Coffee teased, referring to the couple's children and grandchildren, whom Brahim treated like family. While the old friend was welcomed with hugs by the children running from all directions, Emma and Coffee exchanged a knowing glance. The desert had taught them that life offered no guarantees, only opportunities to choose love every day, against all odds. Later, when night had already fallen and the children were asleep, Coffee picked up his old guitar and began to strum the melody that had united them decades ago. Emma closed her eyes and whispered, "God sings where we forgot the melody, and writes where the sand erases everything," he replied. The gentle night breeze carried the notes through the air, leading them beyond the walls of the house, beyond the village they helped transform together, beyond time and space. A testament that, even in the most arid places, love can dig deeper than the harshest drought and bring forth life where it seemed impossible.